So here's one of these whalebone structures in rough shape, sort of in the raw as glued up. I've already shaped one of them and got all the curves nice and blended in. It's not as elegant as the original Hans Wenger chairs, but I think it looks pretty good. And to do that, I used a bunch of hand tools. You can see I've got pretty much my whole tool drawer here on the bench. I have the back and bottom frame mocked up and temporarily balanced on the bench here so that I can take some measurements for the hinges. And the hinges that Caleb James has documented in his article are going to be a little bit too big for my application. And that's because his frames are thicker. He's not building an exact replica of the JH5112 chair. He's made quite a few modifications. For example, his hinge crosses the entire width of the bottom rail, and he can do that because he has no groove for the support mechanism to run in because he has no support mechanism. So I've had to draw up my own hinge to fit my application, and mine are going to be about 2.5 inches long. And I've already gone ahead and cut out a set and taped them here to my brass bar so that I can begin cutting these out and drilling all the holes. I think it would be wise to go ahead and cut this off, but leave all of these together and drill all the holes while the piece is big. It'll be just easier to handle. This piece has some dents. If I get just the right lighting, you can see them. There's one right here as well. It's hard to capture with a camera. But I'll be using my iron and a wet paper towel to try to steam those out. Alright, that's got that one. I'll move on to this one. I don't know if you can see, but it definitely raised the grain. You can kind of see it on this profile. So in this area, it's definitely raised the grain. So I'm going to let this completely dry, probably until tomorrow morning before I touch it with the hand sanding step, which is the next step on all these pieces, is to hand sand them. Okay, so I have a successful dry fit of one of the two chairs. I'll go ahead and disassemble this and get a coat of finish on. Okay, so all the woodworking is more or less 99% done here. I have a few small tasks to do. For example, with this back brace on the bottom seat, I have to ease the back side a little bit to make accommodations for the upright when the seat is folded in the sitting position. There's just not enough clearance to allow it to open up all the way. The one other task I need to do prior to weaving the seat is I need to flush up the screws here for the hinges. There's just, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch of the threads sticking past the hinge there. And that is part of the instructions from the Caleb James article that I used to fabricate those hinges. I'm not going to continue with this build series. This will be the last video in this build series because there's so little woodworking left, and from there on out it's mostly seat weaving, which this is not really a seat weaving channel. But I have done some practicing on this frame, and this is more or less the pattern that I'll be using to weave the seat. It's a no tacks pattern. So we have these sort of loop knots at the top and the loop knots at the bottom, and then I'm only doing the single return, which will leave a little gap here. Otherwise I'd have to put tacks in the back side and wrap around and return so that you get a full covering of the side. I guess to me this looks good enough. It's not as refined as the other way, but I am an amateur and I think it's going to be challenge enough just learning to weave the seats here. But I like the way this looks, and I think it's going to look even better with the Danish cord. So again, that'll be it for this build series. Once I do get the seats woven, which I plan to do in the next couple of weeks, I will post pictures to the community tab. And before I let you go, I want to ask you to come back in the next video because I have an important announcement about the Woodshop Nerdery channel. Well, that does it for this video. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.